I am Kathleen Shaw, Department Head for Middlesex County Business Development and Education, of which Arts and History is a dynamic office, part of the Business Development and Education team. And I'm going to be introducing today a body of work that's been going on for quite some time, all levels of intricacy, consensus building, stakeholders, comments, and the like. And so we are going to be talking about our Arts and History Regional Cultural Plan. And it's going to be led by Nancy Osgood, who is the president of the Osgood Group. She is here from Cleveland visiting us, and we've been working with Nancy and her team. So it's an exciting day, and I want to turn it over to Nancy. But before that, the two division heads for Arts and History, want to be sure, I know you all know them, you probably don't know me, but you know them. Mark Nonestad, Historic Sites, and Isha Viez from Arts and History Program Services. So welcome everybody, and this is going to be so just a tiny bit of background. We're going to be talking about assessment findings and summary, our plan overview. You all got it, but we have it in the coffee room over there, a hard copy for you to take. We're going to review the plan overview, why it has come to be, and many of the key points, and our grant programs overview, which I know everybody's waiting for because it's going to be a new day and an exciting time. So with that, just a little bit of further background. What we've been working on all this time is spring of 2016. Of course, there was a competitive contract proposal, which the county would obviously do, secure these kinds of services, to develop this assessment and regional plan. The plan was worked on, many of you participated, were key stakeholders from the point of time October 2016 to 2017. The regional plan was built on the assessment and the findings, and now we're moving forward to implement it. So with that, I want to introduce Nancy Osgood to come up here.
Well, hello everybody. It's wonderful to see you all, and it's particularly good for me because I've been behind the scenes with the team, for a couple of years now. I know all of you by organization and name, and I wanted to, before we get started, really spend the time to thank everyone who participated. We sent out a lot of surveys, we did interviews, and hopefully your input was reflected in what we've done. So what I would like to do is I want to tell you a little bit about the process itself, and then I'll kind of go into some of the key findings and then how that translated into a plan. And I do this kind of work, I've done it for about a decade as a planning consultant. And you go into these you go into these planning processes, and when you come from the outside, it's really interesting because you don't know the community at all and you don't know what's coming. And that's sort of the exciting thing about this is you sort of structure the research so the stuff can emerge from the research, and then you help guide the client. Most of the time who comes in with some expectations, but I have to say this is a process that really, we were true to the process, we were true to the findings, and we hope you find it interesting what we have to say today. I'll also say any questions about the research, a summary of which is posted on the Middlesex County website, I'm happy to answer afterwards if we have time, or funnel your questions through the team and they'll get them to me if they can't answer them. So without any further ado, so this is sort of a boring consultant slide up here, but the point that I want to make with this is we really did take a 360-degree view of the county. We went deep into the numbers, we looked at economic trends, we looked at employment trends in the county, all that wonderful demographic stuff that's boring to most people, but not to me and not to my team. It was then, extremely important also to really reach those in the sector. So we did a survey of every nonprofit that we know of and had a very strong response rate. We talked to a list of stakeholders that represented the municipalities, the mayors, arts, culture, history people that live in those areas. So we went really broad to try to hear the voices of everyone who has a stake in this. We also went deep in terms of looking at the nonprofit organizations themselves from the story that is told through the financials. So we look at your 990 forms, we look at a history, we look at change over time. Let's see if I missed anything. This was a little bit of a test. Oh, the consumer. I forgot about the consumer. We actually, talked to residents of the county, again, through a survey that was statistically sampled so that it represents what the county really is all about. And ultimately, that's sort of why we're all in business, is the public. So all of that got wrapped up into what I'm about to share with you. I'm not going to share this with you, I promise. It's here if you want to look at it. It's on the website. But this really sort of outlined the classic kind of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that the county had. Rather than go through all of these and bore you at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when everyone sort of wants to take a nap, I want to focus in on a few things that I think are really salient for this group of people sitting in the room. So again, this is sort of wrapping up all those different colored boxes that I showed you earlier. And basically, one of the things we find, because we also, I should mention, we also went outside the county and talked to people at the state level, and we talked nationally to people about best practices. And the county is well known for what it does, and also for how it does, how the county does it. And the Cultural Arts Trust Fund, which happened, I guess, in 2014 through the ballot as a referendum, really showed the residents' support for arts, history, and culture. And that is getting a lot of attention nationally. We get a lot of attention where I live in Cleveland for Cuyahoga County because we have a cigarette tax that supports the arts. But you guys are competing with us now with this really incredible move made by the voters and led by the freeholders. Long history of, and really love for, and I don't use that word frequently, for the programming, for arts and history grants, for historic preservation, for the county-sponsored programs. Just a lot of good feedback that we received. And, just from my own personal opinion and having worked in the arts for, well, a long time, it's impressive what the county has, and that came through in the research. The arts and history team, so Isha and Mark and Kathy and their crew, Mike is here today. What came through is that there is strong support of the team, but we also wanted to look and dig deep into best practices in terms of how the office runs itself. And what we found was that some of the newer programs, specifically the Cultural Arts Trust Fund, if you don't mind me using the phrase, was a little bit lacking in process. Incredible impact made in the first few years of investment. So we had this sort of spectrum of very process-oriented, specifically around re-granting money, and maybe not so much in some of the other buckets. So that was an important finding, and you'll see that come up later. Financial strength in the sector. We look at a measure which is called months of cash, which essentially tells us how long an organization can stay in business if all of its funding sources suddenly dry up. The Nonprofit Finance Fund has a set number that they say you should have at least 3 months in the bank. And the county does really well and has gotten much better, the nonprofits in the sector. Of course, not all of them. Some have no months of cash, some have 20 or 25 months of cash, but on balance, the sector is pretty healthy here. The opportunity really that came again from the surveys that we did of the nonprofits themselves is some interest in self-reported weaknesses in the areas of audience development, in marketing, in some data-based kinds of things. So that was an important finding because, again, it helps us figure out what plan we need to create. Solo arts and culture workers is the term we use for people really like me who operate on their own and work in some way with arts, culture, and history, either as performers or artists or as consultants, somehow supporting the field as independent contractors. And that's grown in the county following national trends. And there's an opportunity to continue to build that, because what all the national research tells us is when you have that migration of the arts and arts people into an area, it also drives economic development. So that's a case that that has been made many times. We don't need to make that case, but we can say that that dynamic is a positive one here in the county. We think there's an opportunity to really leverage that and make it even more powerful. Compelling story waiting to be told. What we heard a lot during the process was, oh, really? They do that? Oh, really? There's funding available for that? Oh, I didn't know that. How do I find out more about that? So the county has a lot going on in terms of the strength of the programming that the nonprofit sector and the municipalities are putting on, and also what the county is doing. But it needs someone to own it and tell it that's got some gravitas and some funding to do that. The other thing we found is that the county, and this is not uncommon when we're brought in to do some work, there was a lacking sort of leadership of the sector. So no nonprofit on their own can play that role. And there's certainly informal networking that happens, but we didn't see a real sector leader sort of being in that role of the glue of the sector, being able to speak on behalf of the sector, being able to advocate for the sector. So that was a kind of a missing piece. Sometimes, oftentimes, that's a private foundation or a funder, a big institutional funder. Sometimes it's a separate 501c3, but it just didn't really exist here. And that really has to also do with the data and the metrics. So sometimes when there is nobody really in that role, you're not so much able as a sector, as a county, as a community to tell the compelling story. Because we tend to show our compelling story through the art that we provide, which is fantastic. But the story also needs to be told through the hard stuff, the data, the metrics, and the numbers. And we didn't see that happening as much as we would like it to. This is a really chaotic and admittedly ugly slide that I prepared myself. Probably not going to have a future in slide design, I suspect. But the point of this slide is to show that there is a lot of money, and we use 2016 as the year that we looked at. Now these are investments that have been made through the county, either county money or re-granted through the county, in a number of different buckets. And these different circles up here are the buckets or the balls as I'm depicting them here. You may not be able to tell that that person there is a juggler. So you've got all of these sources of money being administered in a variety of different ways, some with a lot of process. And those of you who got grants from the office in the past probably did feel pretty good about the process and you knew what to do. But there were some balls flying around out there that weren't necessarily known, and sources of money that aren't necessarily known to those of you in the community who can access them. So that's the situation that we wanted to really fix, was taking all of these balls that in 2016 was almost $10 million and really trying to synchronize these investments to really make some big things happen in the county on your behalf, but really on behalf of the residents. So the plan that we developed actually came out of all of this research, and I think we had 9 different studies that we did, some quantitative, some qualitative. Again, they're wrapped up in a nice, succinct 72-page summary, which is on the website, so you can take a look at that if you want to. but it really kind of boils down the foundation upon which this plan was built. So you might notice that what used to be called the Middlesex Office of Culture and Heritage is now called something different. It's called the Middlesex County Office of Arts and History. Part of that was a little bit of a rebranding to convey a more modern approach to the process of being a grant maker. So anyways, that's where the name change came in. And basically, this is about investing in arts and history for all the residents of the county. And those phrases below, operating and capital program, education, historic spaces, and preservation, are all the things that the office really oversees, these county investments. And those county investments are happening on behalf of these green things you see at the bottom. So really trying to get great arts and history in the neighborhoods. Neighborhoods came up as a key theme during the research. Sustainability of significant investments that were made because of the cultural fund that was approved. Best practice grant making across all the programs. Remember I mentioned we had some that had a lot of process, some that didn't have so much process. Best practices are really to make sure that that process is transparent, is there, first of all, and transparent and easy for all of you to understand and access. Arts education is important and an opportunity. And finally, organizational capacity. This is really sort of the inside baseball, sausage making, stuff that has to happen at the county in order to support a best-in-class funding program for arts and history. So we built a vision and a mission, pretty succinct. All residents of Middlesex County have the opportunity to access and participate in the arts, culture, and history that enrich their lives. And then the mission is, what role does the county play in that? The role the county plays is to improve the quality of life for all the residents of the county through its investments in arts and history. We also went through a process of really internally thinking about the values and beliefs that are going to drive this. There are a number of them, but this is really important, and this is what we talked a lot about. This office exists, the county's funding exists for the benefit of the residents of the county, for the arts and history organizations in the nonprofits and the municipalities that serve individual residents, and finally for the municipalities, that the county's role is to help create healthy municipalities. And it's important to keep these three core customers in mind, and I think in any work, your own as well, it's really important to think about who are we doing this for? Who are we really serving? And to be able to ask yourself that every day really does help to guide your work. So arts and history driving economic development and vibrancy and creating a sense of community is a belief that the county uses in its grant making. So doing all of this is really about this belief. Diversity is a core strength of the county. This came up over and over again in the research that I did. This is something that there's really a lot of pride around. But the county is only as strong as its municipalities. New Brunswick has some dominance as the county seat. There are significant, what I would call gems there, but this is a municipality-based county, and there's a lot of really great things happening in the municipalities. Being active listeners is important to this group. They never would have hired me and invested in me and put up with the many, many, many meetings we had to discuss the results of the research that we did. But this was all about really listening and being willing to step back and abandon what the folks here had been doing for a long time in favor of other things that came out from the listening we did with all of you. Leadership is really critical, and that really came through to me and continues to come through to me with the county's investment that they made in this process and really digging deep to find the answers and to do the research, and this dedication that exists to being best in class and to doing the work that is required in order to move in various places from maybe not so much best in class to best in class, and the team is very much committed to that. Partnership and collaboration is a core to this plan, and I think you'll see that in some of the things that are up here. The county can play a leadership role, can't do everything on its own. The way to make things happen is through collaboration. Data and measurement, this will explain some pain that you will be going through as we roll out some of the pieces and parts of this plan, but can't really get to best in class without having data. Talked about best in class. The other piece is transparency. This is a public funder, and the public, especially more than any other kind of organization, needs to be transparent, and that is a value we've all talked about a lot. And part of what we're doing here now is that transparency and sharing with you what led to this. So, okay, we did all of this research. We came up with our values, and we said, what are the max five things that are really going to push the vision and the mission forward in this plan? So my belief with planning, and a lot of you have probably had experiences for your own organization, is you don't have a vision or a mission that's going to get accomplished in 3 or 4 years, right? You have to bite off a piece of that you can chew, and they're the pieces that will help at this moment drive your vision and mission forward. So that's what we really focused on with these 5 goals. 4 of them really relate directly to you. One is a little less direct. So the first one is using arts and history as a means to build community in municipalities throughout the county. So those are a lot of words up there. What does it really mean? Well, it means that we want programming, we want to enable, and not just enable, but activate all the great programming ideas that happen in the municipalities, and even at a more micro level in the actual neighborhoods, in pieces of neighborhoods. That's something that can really benefit the county, and we wanted to think about how to do that and make sure that we did that in the first phase of this plan. Goal 2 is to protect and fully leverage the significant operating and capital investments that the county makes through the Cultural and Arts Trust Fund program. So again, that's the 2014 program. There's a big hole in the middle of New Brunswick, which we can credit, I think, in part to that funding that's available. It's important to make sure that those facilities and those investments are sustainable over time. And that requires a lot of things. Obviously, giving out the money is the fun part, right? But you also have to have the plans in place to make sure that those investments are sustainable over time, to make sure that they are accessible by all the people who live throughout the county, not just the people who live and work in New Brunswick. So the other piece of this, or requirement for this, is that the process get put into place to make sure that those investments are sustainable. So it's really a partnership between those asking for those significant chunks of dollars, and then the county who is giving those chunks of dollars out to make sure that the metrics are in place and that it's clear how these things are going to get paid for over time. Because anyone who's done a capital project before, has been involved in one, knows that you get the money and then there's a potential trap, which is, what's the potential trap when you make an investment? Are you sleeping? I feel like I'm in front of my class at Case Western Reserve University.
There's so many traps.
So many traps, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, right. And not thinking about those is part of the issue. It's not just building something, but you got to take care of it. Anyone who's bought a house knows that. You think you're over the hump when you come up with the cash to buy the house, and then you realize that things fall apart and they need maintenance and the fireplace and cleaning that out every year, and the roof's going to go. So what's the plan for sustaining these things over time? So that's really what this second one is about. I may ask another question, so wake up. I'm not afraid to call on people. Okay, goal 3 is really about aligning all the county's funding programs, which includes oversight, eligibility, funding criteria, and communications. So remember that lovely slide with the guy juggling the ball, or the woman, we don't know, juggling the balls. This is what we're trying to get our arms around, and I can tell you that we've been working extensively to try to do this. But it's not efficient to have one thing running out of one place and another thing running out of another place. It's not efficient for the county, and it's not efficient for you guys, because where's the door? Where's the front door, as Kathy likes to say? And we need to define that. So there's a lot that's been spent, a lot of time that's been spent on that. And again, this is about bringing all the county's programs into this best practice, becoming a best practice funder. Some of them were there, some of them not so much. And when this rolls out, they will be there. So goal 4 really exemplifies the piece of this that is about collaboration and partnership. So one of the findings in the study was that arts education is like, apple pie and motherhood to everyone we surveyed. It's important, it's critical. And New Jersey is an amazing state to live in if you value the education, value the existence of arts education. And as some of you may know, the New Jersey Arts Partnership does a census, and they evaluate very deeply what's going on in the schools. And the county schools actually turn up in the lowest third of all the counties in the state. It's still good relative to just about every other place in the country because of the focus and investment that's made here. But the county aspires, what we found in our research was that the county aspired to be better than that and to be better than other counties. So more people will live here, so more families will move here. This is not a needle that the county can move on its own. There isn't enough funding available, and that's not really the county's role, this office's role. So figuring out how to collaborate and advocate for arts education in public schools is something that will happen later in the plan, later in this 3 to 4 year time horizon, but it's on the list because it's really important. And finally, this is the sausage making piece of it. This is building the internal office to make sure that you are all served and that we can achieve these other goals. So I'm just about to turn it over to my colleagues here, but this plan got discussed about a year ago with the freeholders, and now we've moved on. So there's been a lot of work that's been done. Reallocating those buckets of dollars to meet the needs of the plan and the priorities that you all told us exist was part of this, along with really trying to define grant programs that are distinct and help drive these plan goals that we have. We also needed to change the governance of these programs. There were 2 governing bodies, which some of you are probably familiar with and some of you have probably been on. And we really felt that in order to be best practice and to really create this alignment that I've been talking about, there needed to be one governing body. So that was a strong recommendation of ours, which was accepted, and we're moving forward with that now. There will be a new committee, the Arts and History Committee, that will be in place in the fall. The applications have been coming in. That'll be a 7-member committee that will help guide this plan and the grant making and be the liaison between the freeholders and with the freeholders and the community around arts and history. Data arts, this is the thing that you will probably curse us for in the beginning if you're not already using it. This is the way to create that story by the numbers. And believe me, it'll also help you in your own organizations, because there's no better way to learn about your organization than to benchmark against other organizations. And doing this data and putting in the work up front will help you to do that. And finally, guidelines and applications for these new programs. And you're going to hear more about that. And Isha, I think or is it Martha that comes up now? Isha, okay. Welcome Isha to the stage. Thank you. You're not rid of me yet, because I'm coming back.
Yes. So first of all, I'd like to thank Nancy Osgood and all her associates for the tremendous work that she's done on this regional cultural plan. A lot of hard work. Thank you, Nancy. We could have not done without you. So as Nancy mentioned, that we've been working on designing a new grant program. These will meet our goals and help your communities in the county. So the new program offers 5 different options, or as Kathy likes to call them, buckets. They are the historic preservation and capital, general operating support, program support, innovation and exploration, and neighborhood. So I have good news and I have bad news. So the good news is that all organizations, whether arts, history, or culture, will have the opportunity to apply to any of these grants, any of these options. Secondly, those organizations that have been grantees before and are used to applying online, you will have the same password and the same process of applying. So for you, it's going to be very, very simple. Now, the better news is that we will have one window, just one way of applying. You'll have the same deadline and the same window to apply as, and also for most part, we'll have the same calendar cycle. So that's the good news, whether you're applying for history, whether you're applying for preservation or operating support, it'll be one window of application. We're not dividing it between history in one time and arts another. It's one window on our website and will be all online. And of course, the organizations must be based in Middlesex. Your grant funded activities must also take place in the county and must be available to the public. Okay. So let's start with the first bucket, as Kathy says. And Mark will talk about the preservation. That's all.
Thank you, Isha, Kathy, Nancy, and all of you for coming out, spending an afternoon here at the Indian Queen Tavern. Certainly shows great drive and passion. The historian in me just has to say that the building you're in is a historic structure, originally built in New Brunswick. Was known as the Indian Queen Tavern. It was moved here to East Jersey Old Town in the 1970s when it was threatened with demolition. And it saw the likes of people like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin and President John Adams. And also in doing our research here, we found that in 1810, in this very room, they had a lecture on the benefits of a scientific education. And I have to tell you, when we first came across that, it was kind of shocking. I mean, here I thought taverns were, about beer and alcohol, and yet they were places where people were trying to elevate themselves and elevate society as well. And so 200 years later, we sit within that same space as we move forward, trying to figure out ways that we can help elevate ourselves and the society that we live in. And certainly, the arts, history, and culture do that. I'm going to paint some sort of broad brushstrokes with this grant bucket. The title, Historic Preservation and Capital, should really be looked at as two sort of separate branches, right? We can have things that are historic preservation, right, that may include capital projects, but this also has the potential to fund new construction, which certainly doesn't fall within the historic preservation end. So just sort of one of the broad brushstrokes here to keep in mind is that it is a program that can have these two sort of branches to them. They support really in all the county's rich heritage and its future. We all know that this is a county with a very rich history. We're one of the oldest counties in the state of New Jersey. We have a diverse population today, as we did historically, diverse architecture, a very active arts, cultural, and history scene, of which many of you represent organizations that are the stewards of that. And so the funding can include bricks and mortar, so this is construction projects for a new facility. So this would be a capital grant for a new facility that's reaching out for arts and cultural endeavors in the community. It can be used to upgrade improvements in those facilities, whether they're new or whether they are historic as well. And then for the historic preservation end, there's a number of different items that the historic preservation portion of this can fund. Certainly bricks and mortar projects, and that is a tradition. The county in the past has had somewhat of a process for historic preservation funding in this county, but certainly capital improvement construction projects for historic sites, as well as perhaps historic features. So if it's not a total renovation, perhaps there's a particular part of a structure that needs a restoration, that could fall within that category as well. It could also help fund the research and the preparation of the documents that are required to execute a project. So if there are construction documents that need to be put together, that's something that could also be covered with this. And then there's also an acquisition part of it as well. And then the last check mark there is capital equipment. So under the capital part of this, the grant program could potentially fund equipment, a sound system or other types of equipment that is supporting those arts, history, and cultural endeavors. It is an annual or multi-year funding. Many of you who've been involved with large capital projects know that you can't accomplish these in 1 year. So the understanding that this can happen over multiple years, and in reality things that are phased in over that time. And we have our fingers crossed launching October of 2018. So again, I wanted to paint a nice sort of broad brushstroke about this particular bucket, and I'll turn it back over to Isha. Thank you.
Our next category is the General Operating Support Grant. We've been offering that in the past, and we continue to do that. This will provide annual funding to establish Middlesex County nonprofits that deliver arts and history programming to the Middlesex County residents. It's part of their core mission. The support will ensure that the arts and history institutions have the operating and administrative support needed to sustain valuable programs for future generations. Applicants must be at least 5 years old and must have paid administrative staff. Grants in this category can range from $15,000 up to $300,000. And in this category, you will have to have a data arts profile. Okay, and again, we hope to launch, we will launch in October 2018. Program support grants are what we used to call mini grants, and some other name we had, but it's a program grant. And this provides, again, annual funding to establish Middlesex, to organizations that don't necessarily have arts and history as a core mission, but they are looking to fund arts and history and cultural programming. They could be nonprofits, they could be municipalities, but for general operating support, they cannot be municipalities, only nonprofits. And funding is for specific projects that have a specific start date and an end date. The program support grants can be divided into 2 categories. We have divided them to serve smaller organizations and small projects, which is program 2, or bigger organizations and bigger projects, which is program 1. Program 1 will fund, the range will be from 5,001 to 50,000, and program 2, which is the smaller grants, can range from 1,000 to 5,000. Funding for the general operating support grants and the program support grants will come from the Middlesex County Board of Chosen Freeholders, the New Jersey Historical Commission, and the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. So we are also adding some new programming and new grant buckets, and I'm going to have Nancy talk to you about those.
I will not run these programs. I only have suggested them and worked with the team on them. So one of the things that was really exciting about this project was the organization's openness, and this is really Kathy and Mark and Isha and John Palomino, the openness to considering different programs other than what I would call kind of the bread and butter programs, which are the general operating support and the programmatic funding. Most public funders have those two sectors. You guys are also lucky to have this big capital and historic preservation bucket of funding available. But we really wanted to figure out how to go deeper into some of the things that we learned were important to this community. And innovation was one of the important things. Now, what we know is that organizations, organizations are often not encouraged and in fact punished by funders for a new program that doesn't work, right? And how else do you find new things to do except to take a risk and experiment? But this is really a major issue in the sector. It's not just arts and culture, it's across the nonprofit sector. It's a real issue within the sector. And the county has come around to this notion that if we want to have creative, cool things in the county, we need to be able to fund risk. We need to be able to help organizations incubate in a way. And that's really what this program is about. So, and the other interesting thing is this is not and we're going to fund innovation and we're going to give you $500 to do it. That's not what it is. The range is very great in this program. It's from $5,000, I think, to $100,000 for this particular bucket. So a project can have a cost anywhere within that range. You can put a proposal in for that. We're still working on some of the specifics, but and this is intended to be a one-time thing. So you have a year to experiment, you have a year to work out the kinks, and you have a year to, at the end of the year, you can assess whether or not you want to go forward with it, and then perhaps move through one of the other buckets, funding grant programs that's available. But this is pretty innovative, and I'm really excited about it, and excited that the county has decided to do it. It'll launch sometime in 2019. We still have some of the work yet to do that's been done for the 3 programs that you've heard about so far. The other one that I'm really excited about, and I would tell the same story about in terms of the county's openness to considering what we heard, is really figuring out how to reach beyond the established institutions of New Brunswick and throughout the county and really promote programming that happens at this neighborhood level. So to help create an infrastructure to pull out those ideas from community groups that don't even necessarily have a C3 charter, but perhaps working with one of your organizations that does, or working with a municipality. There's got to be a tax form available for the funding to actually happen. But there's going to be a lot of work done to really try to unearth a lot of those neighborhood-based ideas that exist now that don't have a mechanism to happen because they lack funding. These grants will be $5,000 and lower. Unlike the innovation grants, they can be ongoing. So these may be groups that would never necessarily go into the program bucket or into the general operating support bucket. They might be a festival that happens every year. So this sort of accommodates then these creative neighborhood ideas to happen. So those are the 5 programs that will be launched. And Isha, would you like to tell us what happens next?
That's okay. That's okay. So now that you've heard all about our exciting programs and projects and buckets, what's next? You need to know the nitty-gritty of how to apply, what to do, and how to do your applications. The first workshop that we will offer is on July 24th, and that's with Data Arts. You heard about Data Arts. You'll be collecting metrics, learning to create your funded report, put all your data in about your finances, your board, your staffing, etc., and that will become part of your application. So the first workshop that will be conducted by Data Arts will be on July 24th. It will be in the administration building on 75 Bayard Street. Some of you attended the Data Arts workshop that was offered by Dodge Foundation. That was earlier. Those who couldn't make it are free to come on July 24th. This will be from 6 in the evening to 8 o'clock. So if you do call, let me know or Mike know if you want to register for that, and we will offer it in the administration building. The next most important one is the grant writing workshop. As you know, with the new grant application, this will be really important for you. We are offering it twice, once on August 15th and the second on September 10th. So again, do call and register, and we will give you the date, the locations. One will be the village right here in the tavern, and the other one will probably be in Monroe, but we'll let you know where the second location is. Something new that we will be offering this year, and we want every grant applicant to fill out, is a declaration of intent. The DOI is a new round that is added to your application. It's very simple. You just put in all your information about your organization and a brief explanation of why you need funding. And that information will be then typed into your application once we determine that you are eligible to receive grant funding. And the deadline to apply for the DOI is September 12th. You will do it online through the online system through our website, as you have been doing in the past. These grantees who have used our grants in the past. The online application, the deadline is October 9th, midnight of October 9th. And but before that, you will hear from us, from either Bethany or Mike, to determine if you are eligible to apply. Something new that we will be offering this year, or offering as part of our new plan, the regional plan, is the Regional Training Institute. You have come to many of our technical assistant workshops. We've offered social media, ADA, grant writing, etc. But this Middlesex County Regional Training Institute, this will serve as a capacity building platform. Through the research that we have done with all the organizations, we have determined that there's a need to build, to collaborate, to build a social network where you can build capacity. So the Institute will help with that. It will provide workshops and tools for arts and history and cultural organizations to enhance their programs, audiences, and capacity. It will promote the use of innovative strategies and promote collaboration skills that will broaden the county's arts, history, and cultural communities. So we will offer the Institute, these workshops will be offered maybe 3 to 4 times a year, and so please stay tuned for that. Again, as Nancy explained, we are working on the new grant program, the Innovation and Neighborhood. Very exciting. We are very, very thrilled to offer another way of supporting arts and history organization. Another very exciting news that I want to share with you, and that will come also as part of our Training Institute, is that through our website, we will create a marketplace. We are collaborating with an organization called Artsopolis, and this platform will really be for all arts and history organizations. It will provide a marketplace for venues, for artists, for public art, for arts, for public art education, jobs, opportunities in the arts, businesses, and support arts. So our cultural directory, which we have now on our website, will also be part of this marketplace. And we will have, we're working with Artsopolis on that, and hopefully by the end of the year or early next year, we should have a platform for you to showcase all the good work that you do. Okay. And so that's about it for now as far as the grant's concerned. But if you have any more information, Mark, you want to talk about how to contact us?
Sure. I know that's a lot of information that's been given out, and a lot of change. And I think I speak for the whole team. I've worked for the county for a little over 25 years, and I think in the last 2 years we've done a lot more than we've done in the many years that that the office has been around. And we've tried to paint some broad brushstrokes again about these because there just is, there's a lot of information, more than we can just give out in the short time that we have. So to stay informed for more information, you can always email questions to the office, artsandhistory@co.middlesex.nj.us. You can also check the website for updates, and a lot of what was spoken about, the amount, the criteria, the restrictions, that is on the website, so you can get, again, this overview of the various programs. So we encourage you to go to the county's website. You have to search for Arts and History. That'll bring you right to our page, and there'll be additional information there as well. So again, thank you all for coming out. I'll turn it over to Nancy for some concluding thoughts.
Thanks, Mark and Isha. I don't have anything else to say, but if anyone wants to stay and ask some questions, that's fine. I would ask if you can stay, even if we're not doing Q&A, I'd love to meet some of you, so please don't leave without introducing yourselves. Anybody have questions or?
Let me just shout out to everybody that where the coffee refreshments are, the cultural regional plan is there, our text culture, which we're showcasing your work as well as the county's work to the public at large, that's there. So please be sure to grab some of that information. I know it was sent to you, via the constant contact, and you can grab it, but there's some copies there.
Great. So quickly, any questions? Yes, in the back.
Hi everybody, my name is Jackson. I'm from South Sudan. I'm a fellow at Mandela Washington Fellowship.
I'm going to give you this so everyone can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Actually, it has been a bright presentation. I've learned a lot. I come from a community that is a diverse culture because we have over 64 tribes that speak different languages, different history, and different cultures. And I have an organization which is Arise Cultural Foundation. We actually work to promote cultural diversity and tolerance. Okay, looking at all your presentation, actually it started me, and it's actually something that I can learn from. Okay, I heard you talking about diversity. Because like in New Jersey, you said there are a lot of, it is a state which is fully diverse. So with all the work you are doing, how do you really manage to bring all these different communities together? Because I also need to learn from that. And they also take the same information back to my country. Mm-hmm. There's something which I need to learn actually. So that's why I'm trying to ask to know if, to know the approach that you take in order to address the issue of diversity in the community. Thank you.
That's a great question and a big question, and I think probably everybody in the county would be honored if you learned something here that you would take back home when you go. So I don't know if any of the rest of the team wants to answer that. I guess I'll answer it maybe from my experience base. The way to really do that is to keep the lines of communication very open, which is why as we move forward into the next part of the process, we're going to be spending significant time in the neighborhoods trying to find the people who can communicate and to have communication in both directions about what's important in those communities and how the county can help to support that. One of the challenges I think that exists, and we could all probably talk a lot about this, is it's very easy to get stuck in our bubble. And we communicate with each other, and maybe everyone here knows everybody else, and you have a network, but there are a whole lot of other people doing things that are really cool that we don't know about, or who want to do things but don't have the social capital or the networks to advance those. And I think, my sense from my work with Kathy and Mark and Isha is that there's a real commitment to try to do that. So hopefully you'll see some of that as we launch into the next phase of planning for those two other programs in particular. Does that kind of answer it?
just piggybacking on that specifically, because I am forming a creative team in my town as part of the Green Team at Sustainable New Jersey. Would you hold meetings? Would you just go hang out at certain places? Start talking, finding those thought leaders? Maybe you could talk about some specifics that we who are just starting could use.
Sure, so I'm actually not going to answer that question because the answer is I don't know yet. We are spending time actually this afternoon in planning meetings to really talk about how we get there. You know, I can tell you how we've done it in other communities. I'd like to say that someone paid me to just hang out in the coffee shop, which is a really good place to learn stuff. And actually, I do a lot of that when I am working in a community. I do try to get to some of the places that aren't the typical places that people would go, the large institutions, to see what's happening. And I have to say that that Isha has a pretty good finger on the pulse of a lot of things that are going on in the communities because of the programming that the county does. But I think one of the best ways is finding brokers in quote-unquote brokers, connectors in various neighborhoods to really help facilitate those dialogues, because if Kathy and her team don't know who those people are now, they're not going to know unless something else different happens. And so finding people who can speak on behalf of components of the community that the county isn't reaching right now is really what the aim of that would be. Kath, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just wanted to say, Kathleen Shaw, Department Head Business Development and Education, which Arts and History is part of, the pulse of. It's placemaking, it's destinations, it creates jobs, it creates communities, it's the heart and soul. So through Business Development and Education, we have a whole group of, whether it's an economic development team, whether it's a special improvement district, whether it's a Main Street program, we have a lot of peeps who aren't necessarily arts peeps, but the goal here is, this is new for us, is we're gonna find you. Okay? Watch out, we're coming. We're gonna find you, whether it's a church group, a neighborhood organization, a cultural team. That's what this quest is all about. Not just, okay, here's a new program. So that's why it's going to take us longer to roll this out. And this is going to make all the difference in the world, is putting all these partnerships together, identifying all these leaders, some of which we know. We also know for sure we're missing some. So we're going to get them. Go ahead, Isha.
Just to add to that, we will work with the libraries, the community centers in the municipalities, the community leaders, churches, synagogues, temples, whoever, any community leader. We will be working really hard to reach out to the neighborhoods, the communities, to make sure that our word, what we are doing here, is communicated in the municipality. And if you know you are here, you know our plan, be our ambassadors. Reach out to your organizations, to your communities, and spread the word that we are here to support you, support arts, history, and culture in the Middlesex County. So, you know, be our voice for us, and we're going to hold you for that.
I just wanted to add that we were trying to leave to get here, and a gentleman came into Bayard Street, 75 Bayard Street, and if you know downtown New Brunswick, there's a very famous synagogue that had it on Nielsen Street that had a very unfortunate fire. Well, this gentleman is assembling a strategic plan, probably faith-based. You know what he's talking about? He's talking about arts and music. He's talking about, the people who will come there. We talked about Skill Up Middlesex, the fact that he goes, you mean there's project management on there? You can take courses. So through business development and education, we're all 6 degrees of separation. You just got to find those people that aren't in there yet, and we will. Because after meetings like this, you're going to tell people it's all about the power of the networking, and that's really everybody's heart and soul to take away from this meeting. New day in Middlesex County. New things happening. Let's explore it. Let's make it happen. And by that, I think we'll have one of the strongest arts and history communities anywhere. Lindsay?
I just wanted to say, it's not really a question, but as an arts provider and a nonprofit person and also an artist at one point too, I think it's so remarkable to be in a place where we have that outreach coming from your side and from the municipality's standpoint and from economic and development. So often it's us, the little guy that's trying to scramble and make the argument that art is important in education, art is important to the economy, and it's oftentimes falling on deaf ears in some of the other states and areas that I've been in. And so it's such an opportunity and so incredible to have the outreach coming from the other end. And it's really, it's unique. We're grateful for it.
I second that, and I've been in the arts for 37 years, and it's just wonderful to see it coming from you guys that you're interested in risky programming. I mean, I thought when I saw that, a huge light bulb went over my head, and wow, we could do this, we could do that. It's just really inspiring because for the last 2 decades, I think we've been forced to do safe programming, and safe programming doesn't help kind of push the envelope and expand the artistic vision of young people. I think it's really nice. Thank you so much.
Good. Excellent. I just want to share one other thing. We actually got a call from another county, and they heard about what we were up to. This is prior to rolling it out. And yeah, they were dying. They go, what did you know, like, how did it happen? And I said, it started from the Board of Chosen Freeholders. And they were like, what did you do? And I said, they really, this was their dream, that it was going to connect dots. And of course, we took it and we ran with it. And I think we were, and still are, we're equipped and ready for the challenge and to make it happen. But not without all of you and without those people that we don't know yet. So when you find somebody, you know, whether you're on a green team in a town or an environmental commission, or you're on recreation, or you're working with the library and they're looking at programming. You know, this is where this grassroots comes from. The people who decide to move there, and all of a sudden there's a whole neighborhood group that shares in certain cultural traditions, and they want to showcase and share it. That's what we had our commercials on the roll before you came out, and I know when I left the house this morning on News 12, there was our diversity and opportunity. So, I mean, we're trying to say it in a big way, which is always important, that always helps, but we're the group that's going to make it happen. You, your colleagues, and everyone in the municipality. So we have a unique window, and you know, we're really excited about it. So we'll stay tuned as this goes along. So I don't know if there's any other questions. Maybe Nancy?
I just want to make a comment. I just want to make a comment. I've lived in Middlesex County for 46 years. I know Mark well. We live in the same neighborhood. What I heard you asking is there going to be follow-up meetings or sessions where people can come in an informal get-together and share ideas and how they're implementing this? Is that something that can be facilitated here on an informal basis once a month in an afternoon session, that those people who are interested can show up and just exchange ideas? It doesn't have to be a terribly organized thing. You can put the dates out there, these dates at this time. If you are interested and want to come and share information and, you know, ideas and how you're doing things, if you have questions and whatever. Because I think for some people, especially those people who are just starting out, you don't even know how to do the application process, and it's all well and good to have this information presented in this way, but I think there needs to be some informal follow-up to that. It doesn't have to be that you provide refreshments. People can bring a brown bag lunch or bring a drink, and just come and kind of share ideas for an hour. And if it's out there and all of the people who are currently grantees are on that blast email, and you give them the opportunity to come, people will come.
It also can be done online with the new technology that's out there.
It could be done online, but I think there's a real essence in a face-to-face kind of thing, where people are a little bit more open to ask questions that they may think are a stupid question to put online, but if you're in a face-to-face kind of thing, people would come and share information, whether it's experienced people or it's people who are just starting out.
Susan, I think two things here. That's a great suggestion. One, these are the types of comments we need to hear. This is the type of conversation that we need to have. And we encourage, for those that are going to digest all this information and come up with email them to us, get them to us in writing so we don't forget them.
Yeah.
And then Kathy will talk about the regional training institutes as another vehicle to help continue that kind of conversation.
Well, I just wanted to say, when we were having the whole discussion of what are we going to, want to throw everything we had out, what are we going to do new? And the whole idea is everybody can do something new, but you know how people are. They need to be challenged. There needs to be a little, don't do the same program. Okay, it's safe, but maybe if you see something somebody else is doing, there's a way to collaborate, there's a way to do something else. So the whole idea of, grant workshops, technical assistance, all good. But to get some leadership people, part of a regional training institute that'll go around geographically. We all know where all the programs are now. We have it GIS mapped. So we'll be assessing that and bring some innovative, whether it's management, organization capacity people to help somebody understand how they can make their organization grow, whether it's an arts leader or a history or a cultural leader. It's meant to provoke conversations on, gee, we're just a neighborhood group, we don't know how we're going to get going. So we'll be offering these on a rotating basis. And it's meant to be a different level than the grant workshop or technical assistance, which is great, and we still need it. But it's those kinds of conversations that I think, if we're going to grow, we have this great opportunity, we have to create the forum to have those conversations.
Yeah, I think these are great points, and coming at the perfect time for all of us in our planning, because that is something we can absolutely factor into how this thing gets rolled out and maintained and grown over time. Anyone else?
There's coffee and cookies.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, there's one more, but somebody's
I know some neighborhood associations, but do they have to be like a 501c3 organization?
No. From a legal standpoint, the granting has to happen through a fiscal agent of some kind, which has a tax status, but that's something that we can put together.